CVE Gaming.
Hello everyone, my name is CVE Bird and welcome to this video. I have the pleasure of interviewing the SoCal Regional Killer Instinct Tournament winner, Mr. Grimmmz. Grimmmz, are you there?
Yeah, how's it going, man?
I am very good. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty well myself.
Good
Glad
stuff.
glad that you have me, man.
Bro, it is a pleasure. It is a pleasure. If I haven't said this to you already, well done for winning. I believe it's your first major tournament. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's actually my first tournament in general. This is the first tournament I've ever won in
Wow.
within my 5 years of gaming and within fighting games.
Wow. Wow. Well, bro, congratulations. For some of you that know Grimmmz, you'll know him for playing a very mean Jago in Killer Instinct. And one of the things that you may or may not known about Grimmmz is that he actually played Street Fighter 4 competitively before playing Killer Instinct. But about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, is that
Yeah,
right?
just about 5 years ago, yeah.
Okay. Who did you play in Street Fighter? Just out of curiosity.
Okay, so I started out as Ryu
Right.
back in Street Fighter 4 Vanilla because he was just kind of like throughout the Street Fighter series before Street Fighter 4, Ryu was just kind of like the coolest looking character in my eyes. So I decided to pick him up, and coincidentally, he was actually one of the better characters in the entire cast. So
Mm.
I stuck with him for 5 years straight.
Wow. And that was just it. You weren't changing up. It was like Ryu all the way. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of players, man, they switch it up. They like learn like different, they learn like half the cast. And for myself, it's just like, I'll just stick with Ryu. There's no other reason for me to switch to anyone else. Of course, those were the beginning days or before like everyone learned the entire cast,
Right.
and I was quite fortunate back in that day, really.
So you really are a character loyalist person. You really stick true to your character, if you like him.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, bro. Well, thank you for giving us a little bit of history on you and kind of where it all kind of started competitively for you. One of the things that I really wanted to know was what were some of the things you did to prepare for the SoCal Regional Killer Instinct Tournament?
Mm. Well, before I actually went to SCR, my original routine would just be hopping online, getting a bunch of matches, not really spending time in training mode unless I needed to like learn a certain counter against someone. But like my regular training regimen would just be just being online, just like everyone else. Um, that was kind of my way of training mentally because when you put yourself out there in like the world of rank or the world of online, like I try to put my mind to where, putting it within a fighting game with a lot of unpredictable consequences. When you play against
Mm-hmm.
so many different people, you won't know exactly what everyone's going to do at first.
Right.
And it's great because it trains your mind into thinking, like you'll be prepared for everything. You'll have the reactions down for those last second decisions on somebody that you're not quite used to yet, and I feel like it's way better than just playing against one person or just a selective few. You can do that if you want to try to get way better within matchups, but
Mm.
when you jump into ranked games, you're training your mind into thinking, this feels like a tournament. You
Right.
play against a lot of people you've never seen before, ever played against before, and you can kind of have like your own like kind of like your own habits that you can break out of when you're like in that emergency mode when you kind of don't feel like you know what to do against this particular player,
Mm.
not so much the character he plays with.
Yes.
So I feel like that mentally, I feel like that was definitely a great training regimen for myself. And physically, good sleep, very good sleep.
Right.
In a game like this, if you don't sleep well and your reactions are low, it's really gonna bite you. in the butt because if you're not up to par with like the reactions, up to par with like the counters, and all that jazz, just character knowledge isn't gonna do it for you. You got to eat well, and make sure that your mind, like your brain, is up to par with whatever's happening in the game. And if you need to push it further, then definitely a lot of good sleep, eating well. It'll help you a lot just to keep your energy up. And that way you can kind of extend beyond what you normally think of in this game.
Wow, that's really good stuff because I know a lot of people that sometimes they go on fighting games and they play when they're very tired, and sometimes I say, why are you doing that? And they're in ranked and they're getting stressed because they're losing. So I think, like you're saying, from a tournament perspective, that's amazing, amazing knowledge. And
Yeah.
do you do the same thing with online as well? Or were you a little bit more laid back, or is it the same kind of thing, making sure you get enough sleep before you hit up the online?
Yeah, I try to do the same online. For instance, I don't play the moment I wake up because when I wake up, my senses aren't quite there yet. I
Right.
wait until I wake up, start to catch my second wind throughout the day, and then when I feel like I'm in good condition, that's when I hop into the game and start, you know, um, going around and seeing exactly how well I do at that moment. But yeah, for sure, like it was way different the tournament because in tournaments, within the KI tournament, like you have to be there at a specific time. Of course, they're not going to wait for you to readjust yourself to wake up. It's like you're at this moment, and then that's it. And I had to like rearrange my sleeping schedule, throughout a couple of days prior to the event, just so I can kind of have a head start of being more alert around the morning, and it actually worked for me. I felt great during those days. So, and I'm actually trying to work on that at home now since I have kind of a great sleeping schedule instead of usually staying up um, like 3, 4 in the morning playing
Right.
Killer Instinct because that's when I usually had my free time.
Right, right. I understand. When it's always at those quiet times of the night when you can just kind of concentrate. You haven't got much distractions or people asking you to do this or being pulled here or whatever. You can just concentrate on whatever you want to
Exactly.
do. What were some of the things going through your mind at different points of the tournament? Like maybe during matches, away from matches, even down to the final. What were some of the things going through your mind?
Mm. Well, w- when I got there, when I first got there and it was time for the tournament to start, the one thing I was thinking about at that moment was nothing. I cleared my mind. I didn't want to think about a single thing because my mind would have told me, you know what, since you're thinking so much about this, we're gonna make you worry about it. Because the way I see it is, it's better not to think about a single thing because if you think about one particular um, aspect about the tournament, whether the player you're playing against, whether the monitor you're playing on, whether like you've broken in your pad or stick, whether you warmed up or anything like that. Like the way I see it, the more you think about it, the more you start worrying about it, especially when you're not used to getting nerves out of the way. So I felt like, I shouldn't be thinking about anything. I'm just gonna be here until they call my name, and then just have everything all at once during the first match. Because the way my mind works is when they put me into the match, and that's when I finally start have to think about everything. I can think about every single aspect on an equal level instead of one particular thing that I was worrying about before the match, and then that kind of clouds my judgment throughout the rest of the match with other decisions. Um, but I think that I think that was definitely working for me, like, and I just kept that up. It was definitely a different mindset than playing online for sure.
Right.
Um, but away from matches, like after I got done, I was nervous. I had to take a breather. I had to relax. Um, but when I found out who I was playing against, again, I cleared my mind, and just not have to just worry about anything. Because back in the previous Street Fighter 4 days, I would worry about everything.
Right.
Am I playing against this person? Oh crap. You know, he's picking this character. Okay, this is bad news for me. You know, because in Killer Instinct, everyone's initial thought is, this player is good and he's picking Saberwolf. I'm scared. You
Right.
know, that's
Right.
kind of
Right.
like the deal right now. And but the thing is, it's like, you know, I could have easily been like, Chris G. I'm playing against him and he's Saberwolf. I'm in. I got bad luck. You know,
Right.
I could have thought of that, but you know, it's just important to just keep your mind clean. If not, if you can't do so, just, you know, I like to think about some of the online matches that I had, some of the greatest matches that I had with all sorts of players, and how great it would be at a tournament. And then, you know, as long as you could just clear your mind, just think positive, not have to worry about a single thing until the match finally happens, I feel like you can start dividing parts of your mind to different aspects of the match and nothing outside of it. So that way, you know, you can have a really good advantage overall, and having to weed out the all of the nerves that come with it as well.
I think that's a really powerful thing that you said, because I don't really hear a lot of people that kind of just can say that I really just kind of cleared my mind. Because, like you said, when you were giving an example, oh, it's this person with this saber wolf. What monitors are those? Like, do they have lag? I haven't used the stick much. Will I be able to perform? These are all negative things that you're inwardly saying to yourself that are literally just kind of chipping away at your confidence. And a lot of people probably do that. And for you to be somebody that's aware of that is a very, very impressive and amazing thing, just to kind of just be in the moment and not worry about
Mm-hmm.
anything, like you said, outside of that. That's really an amazing thing. Did you ever doubt yourself when a match wasn't going the way that you planned it? And if so, how did you turn it around?
Well, I could say right now, the moment that somebody had an upper hand against me in a match, whether it was a couple of seconds to an entire round, I'd start to doubt myself because um, the way I see it, you can doubt yourself for two reasons. You can doubt yourself for, you know, your skill and, you know, kind of, you know, become even more nervous and just kind of not even, uh, try out your own play style that you've been working so hard for, or you can doubt yourself and make that as kind of like a vector to open up a whole new box of options that you've been keeping behind. Um, I basically, for example, when I played against Chris G, and he beat me the first two games within winners, I was doubting a lot of stuff in my playstyle. Should I keep up with the manuals? Should I, you know, like maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I
Mm,
shouldn't optimize so much damage. It's just not working. And I used that as a way where, you know, I would start thinking about, okay, what would I do against some of the other players that I play against? And I would just kind of mix and mash it together, and you know, I would just start to think about what are my most successful tweaks that I had to apply to my playstyle, because this is just not working. And if I kept doing what I was doing, I doubt it would have gotten me anywhere. And I felt like, you know, after doubting myself for quite a bit after those two games, I started thinking about other alternatives. You know, I guess maybe I should play some more, you know, a defensive style, more defensive, less rush down, you know, play it smart. And as it kind of progressed a little by little, I started seeing results. And I'm like, okay, I'll keep it this way until something else happens, and then I'm probably going to switch back and forth, you know, and from different play styles, you know, from my original rush down to, you know, unorthodox defensive, and back to rush down again, because
mm,
you never want to stray away from your original play style, because that's what made that's what makes a player a player.
mm,
And you know, it's great to have all of these other ones as a backup just in case something doesn't work. And
mm.
it's great to experiment both at the same time, because you know, when one fails, you got to have a plan B. And as long, you know, and like I said before, I've doubted myself many times, but it helped me open a different part of a play style that I can implement in my game to get me further. And I feel like it's good. It's good to doubt yourself. Just as long as you don't doubt yourself in in complete depression and to the point where you get scared that you feel like you can't win and basically the match hasn't even started yet, you know? So
Yes.
I think that's the most important thing.
You were saying you had a couple of problematic rounds or games when you were versing Chris G. And you spoke before about clearing your mind and just kind of being in the moment. Did you clear your mind and do what you kind of had done before when you were having a few problems facing Chris G, or did you do something different? What was it that you actually did to kind of break through?
Mm. Okay, so what I did basically when I had some issues, um, I was able to clear my mind. I was able to just drop everything that I was doing and just kind of start rebuilding again, but in a different fashion. So I dropped like my whole rushdown game and started to think, okay, I need to start doing this. I can't be doing that. And at the same time, I'm always giving respect to the other player,
Mm,
because if they're winning in a winners finals or grand finals, no matter what they're doing, it's working. Whether
right.
it's fundamentals coming from a past game, whether it's something that they just figured out, and they deserve that respect. Because once you start, you never want to start clouding your judgment that way. When another person's winning, you want to respect it and then find a way to counter it.
Right.
A lot of people have a lot of trouble doing so because sometimes they let it cloud their mind, and then some other wacky emotions might stem from it. Whether
Mm-hmm.
it's I can't believe I'm losing to this guy, I shouldn't be losing to this guy, and then that's kind of like the mindset where you start to fall, and you end up not giving them any credit, and then it becomes you're underestimating your opponent already. Um, but I feel like no matter what he was doing, it was working against me,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when I definitely had to just, first I had to respect it, and then I had to find a way to counter against it. And at the same time, I had to keep my mind from thinking or from stirring up any kind of emotions, nervousness, anger,
Yeah.
I don't want to say anger, but sometimes people do get salty when they lose.
Yes. Yes.
And back in Street Fighter days when I get salty, I lost. Whether
Right.
it's the first game, you know, and I think I think I did pretty well. The moment Chris G started giving me trouble, first and foremost I had to respect his game, and then I had to rethink my game all over again, especially from my online roots.
Mm.
So I think that worked out really well for me.
No, it definitely didn't. And I definitely want to commend you on saying something so powerful about actually respecting somebody, regardless of if you, for example, not saying that you said this, but imagine if somebody thought, oh, that person's tactics cheap or they're just doing this. What you said is it's working. And you first respected it and said, you know what you're doing is working, but right now I need to change this. Because a lot of people
Hmm.
at that point where you said I'm going to respect somebody start blaming themselves, start blaming the character they're using, and it kind of ties back into what you're saying. They put all these negative emotions into their game, and like you said back in the day when you got salty, that's when you lost. And I think that is a very, very important thing that you said, actually, to respect the person that's in front of you, regardless of if you feel that you should be losing to them or not. And I think it's just amazing that you did say, I respected what was happening. And I said, now, what am I going to do to counter this? And it worked out for you. So I think I
Hmm.
really want to commend you for that. That's just an amazing way to look at the game in general, not just for tournaments. I think it's just really amazing. But
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
no problem. But literally stepping away from the tournament, I'd like to ask you some questions about your online experience. I know you've touched on it a bit, but literally, I know, and a lot. This is me personally, but I know that it's widely considered that you are the best Jago currently playing Killer Instinct, and your online stats do mirror that. I wanted to ask you, what are some of the things you first practiced or trained on when you first started playing Killer Instinct?
The first things I would probably have to say is what will this game allow me to do. Like, first off, like bringing some fundamentals from Street Fighter, I wanted to see how much further you can push that. So, for instance, Street Fighter, there's not really such a heavy juggle system. I wanted to see if you can kind of mix and match some of the ground games and then kind of transition it to like an air game. And then after I kind of learned some of that, you know, um, then I started learning, okay, this gets me a lot of guaranteed damage, but I can't just focus my mind on just Street Fighter fundamentals because in Street Fighter you can't combo break, you can't counter break, you can't shadow break. There's no ultra system where you can just end the match.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first started, I carried some of that over. Because in Street Fighter I always go rush down. People said I had an unorthodox Ryu. I never like to use projectiles. In this game, there are projectiles, and some people may see it kind of like a way of, kind of like a gimmick, a way to get around them. But in this game, you can set up projectiles where you can actually trap opponents right after they get knocked down, and that's what I was trying out the first time. I first started seeing, how the juggle system works.
Mm-hmm.
If projectiles were viable, I started making some setups, and I learned that this game heavily favors a lot of that stuff. At first people may not think so, but with the system of fireballs, shadow fireballs, like with how safe it can be, how much pressure it can be, put, it was way different than any other game that I played, and that's also what I was focusing on as well. So the juggling system, fireball system, potential zoning, and as well with instinct as well. Instinct, when I first tried it out, I felt like it was kind of like the focus, the focus dash cancel
Mm-hmm.
basically, like in Street Fighter,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people saw it mainly just, oh, it just gains health. It's like, no, you can use it in many different ways, and it was definitely a crossover for me. Like I just started thinking, what can I do here that I used to do in Street Fighter, and what can I do here that's completely unique, and I can push it way furthermore that will reward my rushdown tactics. And those were kind of like the first things that I did when I entered Killer Instinct. And of course, picking Jago, it was just kind of like a no-brainer because Jago and Ryu kind of go hand in hand. They're very, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think those were like the very first things that I picked up that I really wanted to try out. And once most of it was really successful, I just started playing, trying it out against everybody. And if it was working, then I decided to keep it under my belt and to add anything else that I could, whether it was damage or more meter gain, as long as it was more advantage
Mm-hmm.
than than punishing for sure. And it seemed to be really working out way more than I've ever expected, for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
What would you say are or were the defining things or the defining moment that made you the fearsome Jago player that we see today? Do you think it was one particular thing?
Honestly, I want to say manuals
Right,
because that's what everyone feels. That's what everyone sees. The Jago with the manuals is absolutely amazing.
right.
And I have to agree, Jago's main arsenal is manuals, and when I learned it, I would think I was the very first few people, setting aside, the Double Helix crew, to
Yeah.
learn Jago manuals and to just consistently use it. But I don't want to say that because I really don't believe that was the defining moment of how I progressed through. I want to say the character matchup and knowledge that's
Right.
helped me because um, the thing is, a lot again, like I mentioned, like I keep bringing up Street Fighter. A lot of these matchups are quite similar. Like
Right.
Jago Glacius, you can really relate it to Dhalsim. Jago Orchid, you can relate it to Fei Long. You know, Jago Saberwolf, it's kind of like a cross between El Fuerte and and maybe Hakan.
Right.
Because it's just hard, keeping Saberwolf in one spot, especially rushing him down, and and so on and so forth. Um, I think that was my defining moment. A lot of people may not realize that because they see manuals and they see a lot of people messing up, breaking them, and which gives me a lot of opportunities. But without character knowledge, matchup knowledge, I wouldn't even get close.
I see.
No way.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. So it's again like you're saying. I think seeing the manuals, especially in the way that I see them done, they just look very awkward. So it can throw someone off the game. But literally, it's the matchup knowledge, like you're saying, which is one of the things outside of the combo system, which really tied in everything that you did inside of the combo system with the manual. So you worked on the manual, so you had that down. But then it's also saying, okay, I know outside of that, I'm set. I know outside of the manuals that I can do to throw somebody off and maybe force a lockout. And because I know what's safe against this character, or what I can do here, or what I can do there, it supported the manuals, and the manuals supported everything outside of it. So it was kind of like a marriage between the manuals and the knowledge that you got from the matchups, which is some great stuff. Okay, on to the next question. Do you believe there is a tier list for this game?
Okay. Do I believe there's a tier list in this game? I want to say yes and no.
Okay.
I want to say there's a personal tier list. Everyone's, personal emotional tier list, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it does.
I want to say, yeah, when people kind of, like say like their own tier lists, but it really just reveals like their own personal matchups, how well they do against
Yes.
so and so. It's too early to put out a factual, on point tier list. I mean, if there would have to be any, then it would consist of like only two grades, A and B. Like who's the very top, with the most tools, most mobility, the least amount of risks with the highest amount of rewards, and the B list where basically everyone's on there and it just fluctuates like crazy. I'd say that is kind of like the on point tier list at the moment because this game favors a lot of unique players. So that's
Yes.
why it spawns a lot of personal, you know, tier lists, and it will, some people can come to an agreement, some people will have a different opinion. I'd say it's still way too early to come
Yes.
out with a factual tier list.
Right, right. Okay. Now, you might know what I'm going to kind of ask you next, but speaking about people and their own personal emotional tier lists, you've probably heard a lot of people complain about this character, and I'm going to ask you because I think with the answers you've been giving me, I really want to know what you think about Saberwolf and if you think he is broken or has broken features, and do you think he's overpowered like some people will say?